Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Money Talks with Attorney Coral. I am Attorney Coral Pleas, the host of the show, and I'm here in the studio again this morning with the wonderful Dr. Mose Fuller, who's on the board of directors for Columbia Savings. God, say hi to the people.
Good morning, Milwaukee. How you doing this morning?
And I'm so glad, to have you when you make the time to come in and co-host the show. You could be kicking back, enjoying retirement and or all the busy work that I know you have to do,
Yeah,
for the church. So I appreciate your time, Doc. Whenever I call and ask you to come on and talk of some things with me, that you always take the time to do that. So I'm very, very grateful that you're here today. Um,
appreciate that.
we come every Thursday morning from 11 to noon on WNOV 860 AM, which is 106.5 FM. And, we're very, very glad that they have us and allow us to come. And we hope that the show is informational and educational for the
Man,
community. And it's part of the reason that we call it Money Talks because it's such a broad topic. Anything can be money related.
yeah.
We've spent a lot of time talking about Columbia Savings and Loan
Mm-hmm.
Association because they do sponsor the show,
Sponsor the show.
and we one other thing that I want to promote a little bit this morning is a nonprofit um, organization called the Hope Initiative. There may be people from the audience who recall it's been a while, but my niece, Hope Manuel, came on the show quite a while ago, a year ago, I guess it's been.
Mm,
That's how fast time flies. And she let everyone know that she started a nonprofit organization called the Hope Initiative. And there's a campaign with that organization called Hope Loves the Kids giveaway. So basically, what it is it's a code drive. Um, she was asked why she took this on because she's a busy person. She has a full time job. She has a business that she runs. Why take on a nonprofit? Well, she would describe how just kind of driving, around the city of Milwaukee on her way to work or wherever she see kids, school
right,
age
right,
kids
right.
going to school,
No
sitting
coach.
on bus stops, no coats.
Yeah.
Sometimes it'd be a hoodie,
Mm,
sometimes not even quite that.
yeah.
And that, we're in Wisconsin. This weather is not to be played with. So it just kind of touched her heart. And she decided, well, you know what? I feel a way about it. So let me do something about it. And so she put the word out. She started the nonprofit and put the word out and let everyone know that, she'd be collecting coats for a giveaway to people that need that for the summer, specifically targeting school aged children, and that means the little ones, all the way up to the older kids, high school kids. They can be adult size. So there's even some um, coats for infants. She does have some. I just want to give her website. I want to make sure that I'm giving the information out correctly. Um, and I believe that it is mkehope.org. That's mkehope.org. So go ahead and if you're listening, and that might be of interest to you or someone that you know or that you care about, give them that website. Tell them to go and check it out. There's a registration process that we prefer. It makes it a little bit easier for the giveaway. So if you say, hey, I know I need a boy coat and a girl coat, size 10 and size 12, then she can see what she has and then maybe set something aside so that when people come for the pickup, it's already, picked
Yeah.
out for them. And sometimes people bring the kids, let them try them on. Otherwise, sometimes the parents just know what size the kids need and then
Mm-hmm.
they're able to just do it that way. But it is Milwaukee Hope Initiative. It is mkehope.org. And we have been accepting the donations at Columbia Savings and Loan. In the lobby, there's a big box that says Hope Loves the Kids. And people have been generously putting coats and jackets for kids in those boxes, and a lot of people who weren't able to donate lightly used coats have donated cash. And
Cash.
so what she has done with that money is she has gone and she has bought brand new jackets, winter jackets. The last time we had a giveaway, which was right after Thanksgiving, on the day not that Friday after Thanksgiving, but the following Saturday, we were at the bank, and there were families coming in, and there were some teenagers standing there at first not looking real happy because they thought they were going to get something that was maybe old or used or outdated or kind of beat up, and they really didn't want it. But when they got upstairs and they saw how nice some of these brand new jackets were, these kids came running down those stairs with the biggest smiles on their face, and I'm telling you, that made it worth
Yeah,
it.
it does.
That made it worth it. I want to sleep in sometimes on a Saturday, but it's worth getting up if you can see just one kid come out with a smile on their face because they're proud of what they're wearing and they know now they're going to be warm. So this Saturday at Columbia, 2020, um, West Fond du Lac Avenue, from 10 a.m. to 1, we will be having the giveaway. Hope will be there. So everybody that doesn't know Hope will be able to see Hope of the Hope Initiative. That
Yeah.
is her name. Her name is Hope. That's my niece, everybody. I'm very, very proud of her. She's very generous and very smart and very kind. And so this is her initiative. I'm only there to support her. And her mom, my sister Lisa, I'm sure will be there as well, just so we can help her out, and other friends and volunteers that she has. I can't name everyone, but there's so many people that have come out in support of this initiative. But we want to have no coats left
No,
after this
not any.
Saturday, if possible. That's what we want. So
Right.
please get a hold of us, or please stop by, or please, go to the website and let her know what you need, and we'll try to have it ready and set aside for you for Saturday. So I said more than I intended, but I wanted to take the time to just really say that.
That's a good cause because, man, my grandson go to MLK school over here on Concordia over there.
Hmm.
And I'm telling you, I've seen little kids out in the playground. It wasn't as cold as it is now, but it was getting cold. And they didn't have not any coats.
Right.
Really. I mean, they had maybe a little hoodie, things like that. And it's something that kids really need this time of year,
Absolutely.
you
Absolutely.
know.
Yeah. And and kids, I know they lose hats and gloves and,
All
and
the time,
everything
my
left and
grandson,
right.
man,
And it's hard to keep up with those, but everybody does need
need
that
a
warm
coat.
jacket or coat, and there's just, I don't know. It should just be, it should go without saying in Wisconsin this time of year.
Yeah.
But I see what you see, and Hope saw it too, and Hope said nope, she was gonna do whatever she can, her part, small part, to try to make sure that the kids stay warm. So that's what we want. So let's
Amen.
let's please everybody come out and support her with that this Saturday.
That sounds great.
Yep, yep. So on to other business, Dr. Fuller. I thought that we had a very, very good show a few weeks ago when we've had several shows where we've been talking about insurance, but we talked about different facets of insurance. It all kind of kicked off when there was unfortunately the flooding in Milwaukee
Hmm.
this summer. And so there was a lot of conversation around the need for insurance as relates to homeowners. And already it looks like we have a caller that's calling in. So we're gonna see. Okay, well, I'll keep the conversation while we while
Yeah.
we just check and see. So okay, I thought it was, but I was mistaken. But so what we're talking about today, I'm gonna let you take the lead in terms of the insurance that you would like to discuss. There's some other facets of insurance that I
Hmm.
have more of an expertise, but
Right.
I
Right.
really enjoyed listening to you talk about. First of all, explain to everyone a little bit your background in insurance and why it is you're so knowledgeable with respect to this topic, and then go ahead and talk about insurance.
My background goes back to 2000 and 2014. That's when I really got into more so of a uh, uh, insurance, not per se, but with a company that does investments and things like that. And one of the components of that is, life insurance. When you have money, uh, insurance, the philosophy that we have is that insurance protects your money. If you have life insurance, if someone in the family dies, and this is the problem, we all are going to die. We did the issue, we just don't know when. But everybody has a date with death. That's not even an option. Unless you unless you translate it. And so and we know of only a couple of people have been translated in biblically speaking, but mostly people die, and that's it.
That
And so
was
they need, but
Enoch, right?
yeah,
Enoch was
yeah,
one,
yeah, Elijah,
right? Okay,
yeah,
okay.
and so
I'm testing my biblical
yeah,
knowledge, and
yeah,
I was
that's
gonna
it,
say, of
yeah,
course, Jesus, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. He
Okay,
died, he
sorry,
got
Doc.
up.
Yeah, right, right. He didn't have to
He
get.
didn't stay dead.
He didn't
See,
have to get
he got up.
raptured up,
He was up,
right? He got up
and
on his
so
own.
yeah, God raised him. So see, insurance, the like we was talking about, the what people should have is a philosophy of life as it relates to their money and the protection of their family. Now, of course, if you have a lot of money, then insurance, you're self-insured, so to speak, because you really don't need to be paying somebody if you got a whole bunch of money laying around, and you just you don't need life insurance. If you die, well, you can take care of the
Hmm.
particulars, death benefits and all, burial and all that stuff.
And most of us are not in that position.
Exactly. So that's why we really need it. And the
Hmm.
best time, like we said, the best time for anybody to get insurance is when they're younger,
Hmm.
because it's just simply it's going to be cheaper.
Right.
And if you can insure your family and everybody, when you're young, you have a lot of needs. The kids at the home, all kinds of, you have more bills. When you get older, you usually shouldn't even really have all that stuff. When you get older, like myself and others, you know what you should have? It's a lot of money.
Oh, there you go.
Isn't that right? You
Yeah.
want to have when you get really, you don't want to be worried with this stuff that
Yeah.
the issues that you were worried with when you were younger.
Right. Right.
The kids are grown, they're gone. The family, empty nesters, the wife, you and the wife, and not a lot of bills, hopefully.
Right.
And if you had an insurance problem, that was taken care of. If you didn't have a lot of money, but you got covered, then that would be taken care of. And your investments should be in order.
Right.
So the
Right.
type of insurance that I deal with is term by the cheapest type of term insurance that you can, and invest the difference.
Okay.
See,
Now that was such an excellent point that I don't want you to rush through it, but I want to be mindful that we have a caller that's holding. So if you can just bookmark that
right.
in your mind, because I want to talk about that. But right now we're going to go ahead and take the caller. Caller, thank you so much for holding. Please go ahead.
First of all, this is Rick from Germany,
Hey, Rick.
and I'd like to say hello to the lady and the co-host. Um, I want to speak to your jacket giveaway.
Oh yes.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Rick.
Um, I was a homeless boy, young man in Washington D.C.,
Mm.
and you all know the coach from Georgetown University, John Thompson Sr.
Mm-hmm.
Well, his wife gave me a beautiful coat when I had nothing to wear, and it put a smile on my face from here to the heavens.
I can
Beautiful
imagine.
burnt orange jacket, winter coat, and I just want to say to those who have the money and to those who have the time and energy, make a kid smile or a young person who's struggling with homelessness, put a smile on their face. It does a body good, does a soul good. And second, about insurance. I don't know if I believe you're talking to a wide audience now that Trump is in office and so many people have lost good government jobs. Who can afford insurance today? That's the question for the guest host.
Okay, that sounds good, Rick. We'll go ahead and we'll address the questions. But thank you so much for speaking on the coat drive as well. We really just a word of support, and you're telling the
Yeah.
people what a difference it made in your life. So thank you so much for calling in with your comment as well as your question. Thank you, Rick.
And that is really a good question. Who can afford insurance? When we talk about, like I was talking about having a type of philosophy, a theory. What's your idea? Why you think that anyone should have insurance? And And I have a point here: the importance of insurance, the importance of life insurance, and can you afford not to insure your life?
Right.
So Rick's, so who can afford it? Basically, just like other things in life, you have to kind of like prioritize some things. And one of the things that people do not prioritize is protecting their life. And I know that because I'm in the business, and I know a lot of people that should have it don't have it. They have kids, don't have it, and then something happen. Then now a loved one need to be put away, and the family need protection. No money there, and so death often come unexpectedly. When I was on the fire department, I worked on the fire department. I know that was the case a lot, that people died unexpectedly, and so now, how are we going to take care of the remains? Just a few weeks ago, down in Kenosha, a father got out of the house, but his 3 kids died, and
It
they
was a
didn't.
fire.
Yeah, it was a fire.
Yeah, I
and they
remember.
didn't have any insurance.
Mhm.
So now they're trying to go fund me, and I mean, some people do that, but that's not the best way to protect your family. So to Rick's question, who can afford it? Then I think that what we have to do, and I know that's been the case with Black folks, is that they made a way out of no way when they had to do some things. They just made it happen.
Right.
I mean, we're in some tough times with the situation with the present administration that we're in, but this is not the worst scenario or the worst case that Black folks have been in. So we know how to survive in such in situations. We know how to do that, and so we also, when we have the right idea of how we're going to protect our family, we know that certain things are important. And one of the things that's important that I know that everybody needs is good life insurance,
Right.
especially if you got a family. You got a family and you got kids, and remember, it's cheap.
Especially
really
the
is.
younger you are.
Yeah, it's cheap. The younger you are, the cheaper it is. And that's when you need to get your life insurance and keep it on the books.
Right.
See, you let it fall off, you lose ground, you lose that. And then, you can start an investment too. See, that's what you don't have to have a whole bunch of money to start an investment, but you need to start one.
Right.
You can start an investment with $25.
Right. I was just going to ask. So you were talking about before we cut off earlier, kind of a dual
Yeah.
approach where you get a life insurance policy. Now, of course, I mean, some of this we're talking best case scenario, right? Like when
Right.
you're really young. Let's say you're in your 20s
Right.
and you're in excellent health and you don't have any issues or anything that would cause you to have a higher premium or to cause you to not be able to, be underwritten and approved for coverage. And let's say you can get an insurance policy, you might be able to get one $20-$30 a month.
Oh yeah, you can.
Or maybe
It's not
even
going to be more than
less.
that. And see, that's true, because I know that, when a lot of, working with young folks at our church, I dealt with I had a program that dealt with drug and alcohol abuse.
Mhm.
People always find a way to get cigarettes, and they broke,
And man,
and they
now,
always
you talk
find
about
a way to buy
expensive.
drugs. Yeah,
Right.
cigarettes are real expensive.
Yeah.
A pack of cigarettes is over $10 a pack.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's like $11, $12.
And then some people buy 2 or 3. Well, sometimes if you're really a smoker, they smoke a couple of packs a day.
Right.
Now if you do that, and if you just smoking a pack a week,
Right.
you see what you come up with. We actually, what I'm saying, so people can get what they need. The philosophy of life and insurance is, what is your philosophy about how you want to protect your family? That's what it comes down to.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not a simple idea. Is that I'm just going to have I'm just going to buy some insurance. That's not good enough. You got to have a standard, some type of ideal, some type of principle of how I am going to protect me and my kids. If you're that single mom, a single dad, or if you are a husband and wife, there, how can we protect this family? If the Lord called me home, what am I going to leave behind to carry this family as far as I can as far as it can while when I'm not here, when I'm going to be with the Lord. That's what it is.
Right.
That's all it is. But you got to have that philosophy of life. You're just not going to be, well, I want to have some insurance because no, that's not gonna work. You got to
Right.
have something deeper than that thought. It's got to be
Right.
something that's ingrained in a family structure, in a philosophy of life that I'm gonna protect my family. That's my responsibility. I cannot delegate that to anyone.
Right.
That's what it really boils down to. Your delegation. Are you going to lead? Are you going to be the leader of the family?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah, sometimes and too often, we think in limitation. And I had a relative say to me recently because they found out that I have a significant amount of insurance on my life
Mhm.
and I don't have children. And they couldn't understand that. And they said, well, really, all you really need is enough to bury you. You don't have any kids to leave it. No, no, no. My nieces and my nephews are my kids.
right?
They are my kids. And they come to me for everything,
Yeah,
whatever they need, some life advice, or career advice or whatever,
right.
financial advice, guidance about one of my nieces is, in the process of buying a home
Yeah,
right now. And, that's something that is a process that I've been through a few times. So
right.
I know a thing or two about it. So I can share some knowledge. And so their lives would be very different without me here and involved and able to guide them and lead them and advise them or even just be with them. So it would be a loss for me to no longer be in their lives. So I ought to insure my life so that if
So you can
anything
be a
happens
blessing
to
to them.
me, that, well, I'm not here to guide you, but here's some money,
Right.
to help get you from point A to point B. And more people should think that way.
And see, so that's what I'm saying. It's a philosophy. So it's a lot of people that really leave wealth to their families. That's what they do. Get insurance. When you buy insurance, you really want to buy enough. Most people, if they buy insurance, they don't buy enough.
Right.
They just want to have enough to put me in the ground. Well, I mean, that could be true if that's your line of thinking, but that's not a good thought process. Might be for you, but it's not really a good thought process when you're thinking about doing something that's going to have some generational effects.
Right.
And that's what
Right.
you were talking about.
Yes.
And those not,
Yes.
like you said, they're not your kids, but you're
Right.
thinking about your family.
That's right.
When we're coming up down south in Mississippi and in other states in the South, black folks had that philosophy.
Right.
They thought generationally. They thought about each other. We had more of a connectivity, so to speak. Here they say the importance of insurance. They say how much is your car worth? And they ask the question, do you insure your car? Most people do. I mean, because you want to have insurance. How much is your house worth? If you have a home, you definitely want to have your house insured, right?
Right.
Because you have a fire, then
Yeah.
and then they say, how much is your life worth?
There you
Probably
go.
they're a lot more than your car, your house.
Right.
So if you're going to insure your car, you're going to insure your house, then you ought to at least think about it. That's the philosophy. That's the foundational philosophy
Right.
that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Those are those things. Now your life is infinitely more significant than a vehicle or a home.
Right.
I mean, and so that's the idea. And so then can you afford not to insure your life? Well, you really can.
Nope. Sure can't.
That's my philosophy as a person that's dealing with that. And then, but people have to make up that. People have to be able to see that. And if they don't see that, then that's why we run into trouble. And that's why you have a lot of people that they simply think, well, I don't need it. I had an older person say one time that I was talking about, well, I don't have it. That's not my problem. Let somebody else take care of that. Just put me in a box and put me in. Just put me in a box and put me anywhere. Well, that's not the philosophy of life insurance.
No.
That's
isn't.
not even a
that's
good,
not good generational thinking either.
No, that's not.
You
It's
know?
really just not good.
I mean,
No.
how we were talking last week, and we were talking about the grocery store on 35th
Oh yeah.
and North that went away, and one of the callers called in and said, yeah, people were stealing everything.
Yeah.
And that was a big part of the problem. And we said, shame on us, that this is an issue and this is a problem, that we can't even have a decent grocery store, in the neighborhood because people were so busy walking away, with the food. It's that wrong thinking. It's that selfish in the moment thinking, as opposed to thinking generationally, and where can we be 50 years from now if we just do these things right now. And I, might not be alive to see that, but at the same time, you're thinking about your kids or your grandkids or whoever is going to carry on, the family, and not just thinking in the moment. But I know that it's time that we do need to take a break, but we'll come back with
Yeah.
more Money Talks with Attorney Coral, Dr. Mose Fuller in the studio this morning, and we're talking about philosophy of life insurance.
Philosophy, that's a good idea.
Yes, we'll
Philosophy
be
of life.
right back.
I'm Ebony. A federal judge just slammed the brakes on the Trump administration's use of California National Guard troops to Los Angeles. The strong Wednesday told the White House to stop directing soldiers and hand full control back to the House.
We're back with Money Talks with Attorney Coral, and I have Dr. Mose Fuller in the studio this afternoon. And
Mhm.
Dr. Fuller, we've been talking about the philosophy of life
Yeah,
insurance. I love that we decided that that's what we were going to call it
yeah,
because you've really
it really
been
is that.
sharing knowledge that it matters so much of how we think about things.
Yeah.
And we were talking about, I think I was sharing that I had a relative that was questioning me, why do you have hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of life insurance? You don't have children. Man, you just don't know. My nieces and nephews are my children.
Mhm.
They are mine. So, I want to make sure if something happens to me that they're going to be good. And I know that they're going to be good. So uh, well insured for that reason, right?
Amen.
But it's
And
but
that's
it's
good.
because of
Good
them.
philosophy.
And so we were just talking about the theories, and you said, that this is well, you go ahead and say what you said. You talked about Columbia.
Yeah.
You related it to
Yeah.
Columbia Savings
You
and
know-
Loan. I thought that was a perfect comment.
And it is because I'm on the board of Columbia Savings and Loan, the only black bank in the city of Milwaukee, in the state of Wisconsin, north of Chicago. So now you have two people come to the city back in the 20s, and they decide to start a bank. That's the type of thinking, the philosophical perspective that people should have if they want to make a difference, not only right now, but in the future. That's going to sustain a people that you have interest in helping. So when the Halyards came here, they had a philosophy. They surveyed the area. They surveyed the city. They looked it over. They looked at the institutions that could really help black folks and other people of color in this community, in the city of Milwaukee, in the 20s, that wanted to gain access to capital to buy a home, a business, or whatever they wanted. And they didn't have access to that. Not because they didn't have the money,
Right. Or the credit,
Or the
or,
credit.
or the
or
income
the
to pay
means
it back.
to pay
Right.
it,
They
but
had all
because
those things.
the institutions would not lend them the money. Now that don't make sense to me. It really doesn't. To have an institution that's in business to take everybody's money, but there's a group out there that you won't touch. You're just not gonna lend money to those folks. It's simply asinine. So, but anyway, these people, the Halyards, they decided to do something. They decided to start an institution that was going to help folks that didn't have access to capital and anyone else that wanted to come in. Man, you never heard any, and it's the crazy concept of black banks not lending money to everybody. You never heard that, because you're white, you're not going to get any money from Columbia Savings and Loan.
Yeah.
Now, that never exists. That never happened.
Right. Exactly.
Any way you look at it, it's irrational thinking.
Completely.
Absolutely. And so that's what they did. And so it's a philosophy of life in terms of how you're going to have people in a city, in a community that are marginalized, not because they're really marginal, but because they have systems and institutions in the community that marginalize certain folks.
Right.
And so these folks said, well, look, we're going to fill that void. And that's simply what they did.
That's exactly what they did.
They filled the
That
void.
same philosophical concept
They filled the void.
of helping generations, not just the here and now.
Right. And so that's what life insurance does.
Right.
It's a generational concept. It's a generational philosophical protection that protects your family, your children. See, because when someone dies in your family, here's what you want to do. This is the perfect scenario that you want to have when someone dies in your family and you go to the funeral home. Any funeral home, you go in there and you say, well, I want you to handle, the death of my loved one. And the funeral director going to ask you what kind of insurance you got.
First thing they're going to ask.
That's what they're going to ask.
That's right. I've been through it.
Oh, yeah, they're going to ask you. And then once you have the insurance, now they know quality insurance. When they look at the policy, they know if they're going to get paid or not. They already know that.
Right.
Nobody have to explain that to them. They know that. And so then they look at the policy and they say, you good. So now then the person that went in there with the policy A loved one passed, and you went in, and that loved one has protection, has a death benefit, a life insurance on themselves, and they go into that funeral home with the policy. They are good, and so now that part of your worries is done with. That's the philosophy of insurance.
Right.
That's the practical, philosophical concept of why anybody should have insurance.
Right. Because the last thing you need when you lose someone that you
Yeah.
love and you are grieving that loss,
Right.
and you're already feeling the pain. And as you said, people die unexpectedly.
Yeah, they do.
You know, the last 2 funerals that I attended recently were people younger than me.
Yeah.
These were people, I think, neither one of them was 50. One was 45 years old. I think the other 49. Now, you don't expect at those ages, but that's what happened, right?
That's exactly
So
it.
it is what it is. But when you're going through these things, the last thing you need is to have to sit down with a funeral director and not have the means
That's right.
to pay, so that you have to say to them, well, you know, you're in there and you're trying to negotiate, and
Right.
you're on Facebook trying to do a
Right.
GoFundMe,
You don't need to
and
be
you're
there.
doing all these things to try to come up with the money on top of your grief,
Yeah.
on top of your mourning the loss of this loved one. No, we got to get ahead of this thing.
And that's why you have to have a philosophy. That's why I'm saying, you know, and there's a lot of young folks that's probably listening now. That's why, you know, and you always stress in this philosophical discussion about life insurance, you always discuss the idea that, you know, you really want to protect yourself when you're younger. It's going to be cheaper, and you can do more with your money. You can do more with your money in terms of buy term, cheapest insurance you can, and invest the difference. See, because people try to do that when they buy they buy the cash value, they have a savings plan attached to that. But that's, you know, from my perspective, that's not the best way to buy anything. You know, you don't have your house insurance and you got some life insurance, but, you know, or your car insurance and you got a life insurance policy attached to it. You don't buy insurance. You really, philosophically speaking, that's not the best way to buy insurance.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you want to make an investment, you invest your money yourself, while you can have control over your money, not the insurance company. So when you do that, they have control over your money.
Right.
And they really determine when your money really start making money.
Right.
So if you're going to invest your money, the minute you invest your money, you want your money to be to making money right away. You don't want it waiting to make money.
Right.
Once I put my money into this instrument, when can my money start making money?
Right. Right.
That's the concept. And so the philosophy is that, you know, you want to go into these places and you want to have the means to take care of what need to be taken care of. So then they answer the question, what's the purpose of life insurance? The purpose of life insurance is income protection.
Income protection.
And income protection. If you don't have any, your income ain't protected. Because if you have, just think about it, how many people really have, you know, when a loved one passes away, the average family that's got $10,000 or $15,000 there laying now just to bury someone. They don't have that type of money laying around.
Right.
They don't have that type of. It's just not laying there.
Right.
And you don't want to. And you really don't want to, you know, use that money that way anyway. If you had it laying around, if you had that type of money laying around, you want to make sure that money is protected.
Right.
And that's what insurance does. See, that's the, you know. And so the whole. I guess what I'm really saying, the whole objective is to accumulate and save as much as you can, be as frugal and be the best steward that you can over your resources.
But Doc, you just said something, and I'm just picturing now in my head this example that you just gave. So let's say there's a family, there's a husband and wife, and there's a couple of kids. The husband passes away, and let's say they don't have insurance and life insurance.
That's tough.
And you just said, you know, what are the odds that, you know, a young working couple is going to have $15,000 just lying around that they can afford to use to bury this husband who is now, you know, passed on? And now compound that issue with the fact that in this scenario, this is just an example I'm making up, but to illustrate the point, though, that whatever the earnings that the husband was bringing into that household is gone. Yeah. So what if his earnings were $70,000 a year or whatever the case, you know, may be. And so now that 70 grand a year that was coming into the household is gone. So not only now is there this debt that is there, that has to be addressed for his burial, right? So let's
Mm-hmm.
say they do a GoFundMe and figure
Mm-hmm.
that out. But now you're struggling because let's say the wife, only makes 50,000,
Right.
and that the before this was a family that lived off of 130,000 combined income. Now they're down to only a $50,000 income. And how are you going to make it?
Yeah.
And that's why what you said about what is life insurance, it is, or what is the purpose? It's income
Come protection.
protection. So that's an example of what that could be. So let's say if they had a life insurance policy on the husband, I don't know, the 100,000, 250, 500,000, I don't know, but whatever the
They
life
have,
insurance
yeah,
would be,
they
but
have,
that's what they would get. And that will help you along the
sure.
way
See,
to recover from that loss.
that's right. Income protection, the whole philosophy is centered around what's your philosophy of how you're going to protect your family when you're not there, when you have the Lord call you home.
Right.
And with insurance, the person that the insurance is on, they don't benefit from it. The one that is the beneficiary, the one that he leave behind, they are the beneficiaries of his wise choice of having not only insurance but the right amount. So we theoretically speaking, we say if a person is making 70 grand, a hypothetical answer, they're making 70 grand, well then of course they should have 5 to 10 times that. Say they making 70
Mm,
grand, they got 10 times that. That's what that's 70,000, 700,000, right?
right.
Now just think what 700 grand, and you're a young person, you got this type of insurance on you. Think what 700 grand could do for a family
Right.
when the husband, or even if they had 5% on that, 350,000 could do for a family when
Right.
the husband has transitioned to glory. See, that's
Right.
what we're talking about. That's the philosophy. So then now grief is there, but the financial issues that comes with the loss of a loved one, that's not there because that's been taken care of. That's where we're trying to get the thinking process to be.
Right.
And it's cheaper to do it. It's inexpensive to think qualitatively when you do it the right way. The best time to buy insurance is when you're young folks.
Right.
If you listen, and when you get old like us, then here's the problem: when you get old like me, then you might not be able to get any.
Right.
So don't be
That's
out there
true.
trying to buy insurance when you got old. I mean, if
Hmm.
you want to try to get something, then you're not going to be able to get a lot.
Right.
You get a 10,000, 15,000 policy, that's not a lot. Nobody that's not enough on a family. Like the
No.
families with those husband and wife and a couple of kids, you want a policy that's going to sustain that family
Right.
when you're gone. And if
Right.
you got a 500,000 or $700,000 policy on somebody, and when you're in good health when you're young, it's conceivably that you can get a policy like that.
Right.
But you got to be thinking big when it comes to insurance. It can't be just about a bill. It's a bill, but it's more than a bill. It's a
Right.
protection of your family.
Right.
If your family is important.
Right. Right. Well, I couldn't have said it better than that, Doc. It looks like it's time for us to take a quick break, and we'll come back with some closing comments about all of this. We'll be right back with more Money Talks with Attorney Coral. My guest is Dr. Mose Fuller. We'll be right back.
Are in
A federal judge just slammed the brakes on the Trump administration's use of California National Guard troops in Los Angeles and strongly told the White House to stop directing soldiers and hand full control back to California state leaders right away. The fight started when the administration sent in the Guard without getting permission from California's governor, Gavin Newsom. Many were upset because they felt the feds were overriding state rights, using troops for things like border patrols or street patrols in LA without local say so. The judge agreed, calling it an overreach that breaks federal law on how
We're back with Money Talks with Attorney Coral. Dr. Mose Fuller is in the studio with me this morning, giving such great knowledge and information about the philosophy of life
Hmm.
insurance. Doc, you had some other comments that you wanted to make, and we're getting towards the end of the show. I would like for you to have a chance to just speak freely.
I recall, I just started preaching over 30 years ago, just about 30 years ago. Believe that? My goodness. And I had a member of my church, her son died. And so they wanted me to do the funeral. You did one of my first funerals, you started over 30 years ago. And so we
Yeah.
went by the house. The funeral director came by the house. And
And that
so,
had to be hard because this is a woman burying
yeah,
her
bearing her
son.
son, bearing her son.
That had
Amen.
to be hard.
See, those are the type of times we're living in. See,
Yeah.
I always tell people the only prerequisite of dying is that you not being young, not being old, just being alive.
Right.
That's the only one. There ain't no other prerequisites. Well, because I'm young, I might not die. Well, that's not necessarily true, And so
Right.
then, anyway, so the funeral director came, took all information, and then he got around to the very significant question: can I see the insurance policy? Now that's crucial.
Yes, it is.
That's the determining factor of how this thing is going to move now on. If you're going to be waiting around to put your loved one in the ground, or are they going to be above ground until you can come up with the money? And let me just say, you don't want to be in that predicament. You don't want to be there. I was there with my oldest brother. I was there, and it's not a good predicament to be in. And so, I know people raise money on GoFundMe. You don't want to be there either. You want to be in a responsible situation where you took care of what you needed to take care of before you got to that point. So anyway, the funeral director say, "Let me see the insurance policy." And he looked at the insurance policy and all that stuff they had did in preparation and stuff like that. He looked at the policy. He said, "It's not going to work." So they had to undo everything that they had did. Because there's a 2-year contestability period when you have insurance. After 2 years, the insurance company got to pay.
So
Before
this
the
was
2
a
years,
policy that was too new
yeah,
to pay.
it wasn't quite. It almost was there, but it wasn't there.
Hmm.
You've been paying money on it for almost 2 years. And it wasn't. It didn't quite make it, and so therefore, they wasn't going to pay. So he knew that, and so now you're looking at other means. So that's why you want to get insurance as early as you can, and so you just don't be in those situations. So so you don't want to wait. You really don't, see. And with insurance, you lose money. It costs more to wait. It really does. What do you mean, preacher? It costs more to wait. Well, you get older. The older you are, the more expensive insurance is going to be to get it.
Right.
You know,
If you can
if
get
you
it.
can get it.
Yeah.
And so, and then here's the problem with insurance: people usually don't have enough of it, or it's, when they try to get it, or they can't get it, not enough, or they don't have any,
Right.
And so you want to have some,
Let me jump in there for a minute, and I can certainly attest to it. I mean, ironically, just 2 days ago, I had my insurance agent out, and we looked at up in my wife's policy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my wife has some pre-existing conditions. Well, they didn't have a problem with that because she's already, we have the coverage there.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the issue: you're 5 years older now than when you originally took this policy out. Now you want to up it, so the additional cost made it very pricey to even add on to get more dollar amount, in the event that something would happen. So you are right on the money, Doc,
Right.
and everything that I've heard you say, and I'm just sitting here going, absolutely. So I just wanted to chime in there, Mag. You're right on the money.
Oh yeah. See, and that's it. See, basically, like I said, it ain't about just having a bill. It's about life. But the thing about what Debo just said, at least they got some.
Right. Right.
They can't take that away.
Right. Mm-hmm.
They can't. They locked in.
Mm-hmm.
And when something happened, they got to pay whatever they got. They got to pay that.
Right.
Right. But my philosophy of life insurance is that if you want to have, people always ask me and say, is this policy one that I can borrow it from? I said, I can create a situation like that if that's what you really want. Well, I can just sell you some life insurance. But if you want to have me to create you a situation where you can borrow money from money that you are saving, and that's not in control of, that the insurance company don't have control of, but you have control of your money. And when you invest in money, let me tell you something. You want to have control of your money when you invest in money. But when you have a cash value policy or any type of policy that has a saving component to it, the insurance company is in control of that money. And they're not going to pay you the highest interest that they can. And watch this now. And if you want to take money out of that money that you are paying for that insurance company to save for you, you got to borrow your own money.
It just doesn't seem like that's the best way to go.
That's what you got to do.
Yeah. So any closing comments, Doc? It looks like we're going to have to wrap the show shortly.
Well, the only closing comment I would say is that, you want to have the correct philosophy of life insurance is, and that is to buy the cheapest term insurance you can. And that's what the experts are really saying. Buy the cheapest term insurance that you can and invest the difference. And then I think you'll be all right. Because if you buy that insurance when you're young, 30 years from now, if you're just putting in $25 to $50 to $100, you will have some money when you get old as I am. If you keep on investing the money. See, investing is about time.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Doc. So that concludes the show for today. I appreciate all of your information. And it looks like it's a wrap for us this week. We'll have you back again. I want to talk about what you do when you're not young and you need to get some insurance. I think we need to address that. Right. So, but thanks for listening, everyone. And we'll be back again next week with more Money Talks with Attorney Coral. Thank you for listening.